Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. It is time once again for our monthly panel, bringing you all the news and views in the economic and political universe. Of course, the Honorable Joe Oliver joins us again. He, of course, was the Minister of Finance and Minister of Natural Resources in the Harper government in the 2000s. And, of course, the Honorable Gary Marr also joins us. He's joining us from British Columbia today, but of course he is the head of the Canada West Foundation, former Alberta cabinet minister. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to have you on the program once again.
Great to be here again.
Can we start with maybe the last pile of dirt on the coffin about the federal budget? I love a lot has happened in the last 3 weeks in terms of the presentation of the budget, the reaction to the budget. So, the Honorable Joe Oliver, who is a person who has crafted budgets, give us your take on where we are with this budget right now.
Well, it was obvious that the budget was a very bad document. It was a classic tax and spend kind of a continuation of what we've seen since the Liberals got into office. What wasn't immediately obvious is whether the bad policy would translate into bad politics, and in fact it has. So it's been a bust politically, including one of the more controversial measures, which is the increase in the inclusion rate on the capital gains tax. And I think this was something that the Liberals hoped they had laid a trap for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative government, and have him sort of counter it, and then accuse him of caring about the 1% or the 1/10 of 1%. Well, as it turns out, the public reaction, I think, to the budget was that this is just too much spending. Most people aren't attuned to monetary and fiscal policy, not in its arcane details, but they understand that excess spending brings more debt, increases inflation, makes living standards more difficult cost of living more difficult to cope with. And so that's what they were focusing on. And, the truth is that the capital gains tax is not one imposed on a very small group of Canadians. In fact, the Fraser Institute determined that over 50% of the people who pay the capital gains tax earn less than $150,000. So it's very much a middle class tax, and people were upset about it, including in particular the doctors, which raised the point of real sensitivity for people, right, given the fact such a large proportion of Canadians don't have access to a family doctor.
Gary Marr, any other thoughts on the budget?
Well, a couple of things. David Dodge, to quote him, says this is the worst budget that's come out in 30 years. I'd have to say that a lot of people agree with him. But the interesting observation was made by Tom Mulcair, who said that the GST should be renamed the DST, the debt servicing tax, because if you look at what Canada raises from collection of GST, it's in the range of $50 billion. If you look at what the budget shows for the cost of interest on a $1.2 trillion debt, it's about $50 billion. So Canadians are going to get a reminder about how much they're paying in interest every time they see a bill that's got the GST attached to it. I think that in many ways, it was pretty clear how they were trying to use this document to try and bring back young people to vote for them that brought them in 9 years ago. But the Seinfeld rule applies, and this is John Manley's rule, is that 9 years is about the length of time that you can stay in office. And if you look at really successful prime ministers and premiers, they've been in for 9, 10, or 11 years. One looks at Brian Mulroney or Jean Chrétien, or you look at people like Brad Wall or Gary Dewar. There's a whole host of people that understood that there is a certain shelf life to governments, if we can put it that way. And, maybe it wouldn't have mattered what was in the budget. There's perhaps just a certain exhaustion of
Exactly.
this particular leader in this particular government at this particular time.
We're going to leave it at that and take a brief break. We'll be back with our guests after these messages.